Okay, we've talked about the base units in the metric system, and we introduced the kilo, hecto, and deca prefixes. So now we're going to go back to those base units, grams, liters, and meters. And at this point, we're going to start working with some smaller conversions or smaller units. Now, when we look at grams, liters, and meters, let's just start out by saying we could be talking about 1 gram, 1 liter, or 1 meter. The very first smaller unit of measure that I wanted to talk about is deci. So in this case, it could be decigram, it could be deciliter, it could be decimeter, but not to be confused with deca, which is actually a much larger unit of measure. So deci is over here on the right-hand side of our units of measure. And if we're talking about grams and decigrams, there are actually 10 decigrams in a gram. Okay. Something else to be said about a decigram. Okay, another way that we can actually talk about a decigram is that a decigram is 0.1 of a gram. Okay, we can also accurately describe it as 1/10 of a gram. Okay, so a decigram is 0.1 of a gram, 1/10 of a gram, or you could also say that it's 10 to the minus 1 of a gram. This all describes accurately the decigram. The decigram. Okay. So that's deci. Next is centi. Centi might be a little bit more familiar to everybody, I'm sure it is. And for centi, now, see if I can, oh, I don't want to do that. Let's see if I can move this around. I don't know that I can. Okay, well what I will do is I'm just going to move below what I've been talking about and tell you that with centi, there are 100 centigrams in a gram. 100 centigrams in a gram. So how can we express that? Well, just like we've expressed the others, I want to show you that this is 1/100th of a gram. It's also expressed as 0.01 of a gram. Okay. Or lastly, we could express it as 1 to the minus 2 of a gram. And that's, of course, all describing centigrams. But I could also be describing centiliters, centigram. I could also be describing centiliters, which would be 1/100th of a liter, 0.01 of a liter, or 1 to the minus 2. Sorry, that's not 1 to the minus 2. That's 10 to the minus 2 of a liter. Sorry about that. These are all various ways to describe centi, as in centigram, centiliter, or centimeter. All right. So far we've looked at those base units, grams, liters, and meters. And we have also looked at, keep sliding here, deci and centi. And now we're going to look at milli. And milli would be right here. So for milli, if we're talking about grams, of course milli stands for 1,000. So there are 1 1,000 milligrams in a gram. So if we slide down here beyond deci and beyond centi, and we talk just about milli, milli then is 1/1000th of, let's say, a gram. A milligram is 1/1000th of a gram. And below that, we can say that it's 0.001 of a gram. And it's also 10 to the minus 3 of a gram. And all along, we have been describing the milligram. Okay, so coming up to the top, way back to the top, where I'm lining these up together, we see deci, centi, and milli. So if we're talking about a number that ends in this place, well then we're talking about that number of milli. So in the case of a gram, there are 1,000 milligrams in a gram. In the case of the next unit, the centi, there's 100 centigrams in a gram. In the case of deci, there are 10 decigrams in a gram. All right. What I'm going to do, just for maybe ease of explaining, I'd like to get rid of liter and meter, if I could. Let's see here, if it will allow me to. Okay, oh, it won't let me. Oh, that's okay. I'll figure that out next time. All right. Maybe what we'll do next is we'll talk about some units that are even smaller. Let's talk about the micro, the nano, and the pico. Okay, for micro, nano, and pico, they're obviously even smaller units. And so far we've seen how a deciliter was 10 to the minus 1, centi was 10 to the minus 2, and milli was 10 to the minus 3. When you think about these numbers, always think those are the number of zeros that would be in my conversion. Let me give you an example. Let's look at milli. If that's 10 to the minus 3, that basically means that there are going to be 1,000 milligrams in a gram. There'll be 1,000 milliliters in a liter and 1,000 millimeters in a meter. For centi, there's going to be 100 centigrams in a gram, 100 centiliters in a liter, and 100 centimeters in a meter, and so on and so forth. Well, with micro, nano, and pico, it works exactly the same, except we're a little bit farther down the line. We're a fair bit smaller still. Micro is 10 to the minus 6, nano is 10 to the minus 9, and pico is 10 to the minus 12. And so what this means, if we look at micro first, 10 to the minus 6 means that this is standing for 1/1,000,000th. So a microgram is 1/1,000,000th of a gram, which is our base unit. Gram is the base unit. A microliter is 1/1,000,000th of a liter. A micrometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. There are 6 zeros in a million. Well, over at the nano, we can describe that as well. We can say that 10 to the minus 9, well, that really means, 10 to the minus 9 really means that there is 1 billion, or there are 1 billion nanometers in a meter, 1 billion nanoliters in a liter, and 1 billion nanograms in a gram. And down to pico, well, we're looking at trillion. So there would be 1 trillion picograms in a gram, 1 trillion picoliters in a liter, and 1 trillion picometers in a meter. So that finishes up our talk about pico. So now, in this second part of our review of the metric system, I hope I'm starting to see, or starting to have you guys become a little bit more familiar with your conversions. If you weren't already, it's a great little thing to refer to. Now, if I wanted to convert from a centi to a milli, as in how many centimeters are in a millimeter, or more aptly, how many millimeters are in a centimeter, well, there's only 1 decimal place difference between the two. So if there's only 1 decimal place between the two, between milli and centi, that must mean that there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. If we're looking at the difference between milli and micro, okay, there's actually 3 decimal places of difference between these two. So because there are 3 decimal place differences between these two, then there must be 1,000 micros in a milli. So there's 1,000 micrometers in a millimeter. That's interesting. If you look at the difference between micro and nano, there's 3 decimal places of difference between those. So there would be 1,000 nanos in a micro. So there's 1,000 nanoliters in a microliter. Okay. Yeah, so any questions about this, you know who to contact, but I really hope that this has helped you guys to review deci, centi, milli, and then again at the end we reviewed micro, nano, and pico. Thanks.